Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
G'day and welcome back to another episode of Google Made Easy. My name is Peter Moriarty and today we're going to be covering how to get started with Google Forms. I'm excited to share this with you today. We're going to be covering one of the Google Apps suite, which is one of my favorites, one of the hidden little gems in there that not everyone knows about, but super, super useful. So, two quick things before we get started. If you are following along at home and you want to get a little bit technical with us, we get super practical in our episodes. And what that means is that we are going to help you get this done right in the room as you're watching, whether you're at home or you're at your office. Make sure you're taking some good notes and make sure that you're getting it implemented as we go along. Number two, make sure you're sharing with the Business Blueprint community. So use the hashtag Google Made Easy and Business Blueprint and connect with myself and the rest of the community on social media on either Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media tool is of choice. Make sure you jump on and say hello. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to businessblueprint.com/experts and you can catch up with all of my social media profiles there. So what are we going to cover in this week's episode? First up, we're going to be going through everything you need to do to get started with Google Forms. So if you haven't started already, we're going to take you right through creating your first Google form. Then we're going to go through how to get started setting up your questions. So Google Forms obviously going to have a series of questions that you're asking the person filling out the form. We're going to be setting those up. Next up, choosing a theme and customizing the look of your form. So that's going to help you out, making it look pretty, change the way it looks, and get it ready so you can send it off to your customers or to your team. Next up, configuring your form settings. So how you can get the form to look nice, but also function the way that you want it to function. Next up, sharing your form with team members and external responders as well. So we can choose whether or not we have our form just for internal use, or we can choose whether or not we want to share it with someone outside the business as well. Next, how to see your form submission results. One of the great things about Google Forms is any of the submissions entered into our forms are automatically going to be added into a Google spreadsheet. And what that means is that we can use the data, we can manipulate it, we can report on it, all of those cool things. Next up, and finally, we have doing more with forms with plugins. So we're going to show you how you can use plugins to enhance the functionality of your forms and get even more out of Google Forms. So let's get started. First up, creating your first Google form. Now, what are Google Forms? Where do they come from? And you know, Google's got all these different products in all these different places. What exactly is Google Forms? Now, Google Forms is part of the Google Drive and Google Docs ecosystem. So if you're not already on Google Apps for Work, then maybe it's time to take a look at that ecosystem. But once you've got your business running on Google Apps for Work, Google Forms allows you to use an internal or an external form to collect responses from team members or maybe even clients or customers as well. Now, Google Forms works a little bit like third-party, commercial form and survey submission services, like you may have heard of SurveyMonkey or JotForm or FormStack or FormSite. These are all form services that allow you to collect responses and typically display that data graphically and get email alerts when someone submitted a form. Now, Google Forms are, like all of the Google products, a basic version. They're not necessarily going to have all of the functionality that something like a SurveyMonkey or a JotForm might have. They won't necessarily have all of the integrations that they may have, but Google Forms are super easy for you to get started with, and they're absolutely free as well. So if you've just got a Gmail address, you can go to your Google Drive and get started with Google Forms. Or if you're on Google Apps for Work and you're using Google for your business, then you can also use Google Forms for getting stuff done in your business as well. Let's take a look at how we get started creating our first Google form right in our Google Drive. So we're going to go ahead first to our Google Drive, and you'll be able to see here that I'm just on drive.google.com. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so you can see a bit more of what I'm doing. And when I click onto the new menu, that's how I can choose to create new documents. So you can see here I've got a plugin enabled so I can create Microsoft documents. I can also create all of my Google documents here as well, but you'll notice there's no option for me to create a form. Now that's because Google have hidden it away under the More menu, and when I click on the More menu, I can then go to Google Forms. So I'm going to go ahead and click onto Google Forms, and that's going to allow me to create my first document. Now, like any Google document, you'll see here that once this opens up, I automatically have the opportunity to change the name of the document just by clicking on the title. Now, this is a change to the interface that you may have seen previously in Google Forms or that you may already be used to with Google Documents or Google Spreadsheets. The new interface for Google Forms is a little bit different, so it takes a tiny bit to get used to, but thankfully we're going to be going through it today, and you should be comfortable by the end of this episode on getting started with your first form. So we're going to go ahead and rename the form. So we might call this annual leave request. And what we will do is we'll just put the name in there, and that's going to automatically update the name of my document. Now, because we've created the document, right now that's just going to be put straight into my Google Drive. So we can go ahead and scroll down, and you can see that our document annual leave request has automatically been added with the rest of the files and the folders in my Google Drive. Now you'll notice here that there's lots of different icons depending on the different type of document that's sitting in your Google Drive. You can see I've got some Google Docs, I've got some Google Slides presentations, I've even got some Google Spreadsheets there, I've got some other files like PDFs and even some images which show a little preview. Now this one, Forms, will show up in purple. So you can see I think I've got at least one other form here somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. We've got one more here, untitled, and that one's in purple as well. So our forms are in purple in our Google Drive, and that's right across the Google ecosystem. Forms stay purple. So we've created our first Google form. If we wanted to put that form into a different folder in our Google Drive, that's pretty straightforward. We can just go ahead and pick up the form. Where's that form gone? Annual leave, great. And we can right-click and choose Move To, and move that to one of our folders within our Google Drive. So I can choose any one of those. Let's say I wanted to put it into People and Tools because it's a function of HR. I can go ahead and put it in that folder, and it's going to share it with anybody else who has access to that folder as well. All right, cool. So we've got our form created. That's the absolute basics of getting our form started and filing our form in the right place in our Google Drive. Next, let's go through how to get started setting up your questions in the form. Now, obviously the form, we're going to be collecting data, but we can choose different types of validations for that data. The example that we're going to be building today is an annual leave request form, and we're going to take a couple of specific pieces of data to take down the kind of annual leave that we want to cover from someone. So let's go ahead and look at how we can start setting up our questions. Now, Google makes this super easy to do in Google Forms. It's pretty straightforward. Let's run through how to do it. So you can see it's already prompted me to create my first question here. And you can see that it's currently called Untitled Question. It's currently the question type of multiple choice. But let's go ahead and let's put down the staff member name as the first thing that we'd like to put down on the form, because that's typically going to be the first thing that we're going to ask for. So we're going to call this one staff member name, but right now that's a multiple choice question. We want to change that to a different type of question. You can see here when I click on multiple choice, it's going to allow me to choose all of the different question options that we've got here. So let's go ahead and we'll do a short answer. And this just allows short answer text for us to use for that particular question. Nice and easy to do. And then once we've created that, you can see we've got some other options here. So I can choose to show whether or not I want to create a hint. So a hint is if someone's unsure on how to fill that out. Then we can add a little hint which will help them to fill out the form. So we might say, please use your full name as it is on your employment agreement. Just as an example. So we'll add that in there as a hint, and this will appear on our form. So when someone's filling out the form, if they're not sure how to put their name in properly, we've got a little hint there just to help them out on how to do that. So we've got that as a short answer question. Now you can see we've got a couple of other options down the bottom here. This option will let us duplicate this question. So if we want to make a copy of the question, that'll let us copy the question and create a new one. Next up, we can delete this question. That's pretty straightforward. We can choose whether or not this question section is required. Now this one, we definitely want to make required. Most fields on this form are probably going to be required, so we'll leave that one as required. And then you can see here we've got some other options on the right-hand side. We can either add a question, we can add a title and description, which adds that to our form. Next one here is we can insert an image into the form. Next, we can insert a video into the form. And finally, insert a section. So sections allow us to divide up different areas of questions into different sections, and you can even spread them over different pages as well if you'd like. But for now, we're going to be sticking to just adding more questions. So let's go ahead and let's add another question. So I'll click the Add Question button, and that's going to pop down a second question under the first question that we've created. So this one might be our leave type. So let's go ahead and create the leave type there, and we probably want to make this one a multiple choice. That one's going to be the easiest one to do. So I'm going to go ahead and add in some multiple choice questions. So option 1 is here. So we might make the two options maybe paid leave, and then we'll add another option for unpaid leave. Okay, as soon as it lets me put my cursor in there, then I'll be able to add that. Let's try another one. Oh, there we go. Cool. All right. So unpaid leave. Awesome. Cool. Let's clean up that one. Excellent. All right. So we've got unpaid leave. We've got paid leave and we've got unpaid leave. These are now our two options. You can see here that if we want to reorder these, we can just drag these up and down to reorder them. That's pretty straightforward. Probably want to make this one required as well. Okay, great. Let's do another question here. Cool. All right, let's look what else we have under our multiple choice. So you can add a paragraph. The difference between short answer and paragraph is paragraph gives somebody a text box with some space to put some more text in. You can see here that we've got a drop down, which will let you do a drop down multiple choice. Linear scale and multiple choice grid let you do more complex options there. And we've even got date and time, which we'll use shortly. Now, we might try checkboxes. The difference between checkboxes and multiple choice is checkboxes can actually allow you to have multiple responses on the same form. So let's maybe see approval. Let's say checked with manager. And let's try that again. I think there's a little bug in the UI that's not letting me add a second question in there, but all good. It's okay when I add a third one. And then maybe checked with senior staff manager. Cool. We'll just put in some kind of dummy responses there. These are checkboxes that someone can choose to tick as they go along. And we won't make that one required. So next up, let's put in I wanted to use a date and time one because that's probably an appropriate one for an annual leave request. So let's put in 2 date fields. So I want to put in a date field for leave start, and then that will let someone enter their day, month, and year. I'm going to duplicate that now because we want another date field, and we'll call that leave concludes. Concludes. All right, cool. Now we've got these out of order. I'd actually like to have approval down the bottom. So let's see if we can move this approval one down to the bottom. How do we go about doing that? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So you can see the 2 little lines just up here. We're going to drag and drop approval right down to the bottom so it sits below the others. Oops, we need to drag it down one more. Oh no, still hasn't come down yet. Let's try again. All right, cool. See if this one works. And still not there. Come on. All right.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit Bryn.ai or search the App Store today.